How's everyone doing? Welcome to week 6 of the course. Week 6 is going to be a little more interesting. I think it's going to relate to a lot of things that you have been dealing with. For example, unemployment rate, inflation, a lot of those challenges we're going to be seeing. For this week, you're going to have your midterm exam. It's going to cover units 1 through 5, 60 multiple choice questions, and once you start the exam, you must complete it within 2 hours because the time is always clicking. On the directions or in the instructions, it's going to say you can stop and start it, but that's incorrect. That is true, but you have to keep, that means the clock is always starting. So if within that 2 hour period, if you need to stop it, you can, but the clock is always running and you can come back to it. The focus that you'd want to look at is, I would recommend looking back at the sample test. That's what you're kind of seeing with those questions. More analytical types of questions you're going to be looking at. For this week, we're going to be looking at unemployment and inflation. Unemployment affects everyone. Unemployment's looking at how our economy makes decisions. And when we look at how our economy makes decisions, it's based off the growth of different industries, and the growth is needed with wages and workers. So those outputs are determined by that. When you look at the unemployment rate, it's comprised of individuals that are 16 years or older who's actively seeking a job. So anyone that's looking for a job is part of the labor force. There's two different types of workers in the labor force. You have unemployed workers and you have employed workers. Anyone that is unemployed is anyone that's looking for a job actively. The challenge with the unemployment rate is it doesn't track certain people that have quit looking for a job. For example, with the unemployment rate, let's say that I've been in the labor force looking for a job for 2 years or a year now, and I can't find a job, and I quit looking for a job. In theory, I'm still unemployed. But the problem is, it doesn't calculate it that way. It calculates you as out of the labor force because you quit looking for a job. So actually, it makes the unemployment rate decrease. And that's very challenging. Some people get very confused about that. They're thinking, well, how can the unemployment rate decrease if all these people quit looking for a job? Because they're not part of the labor force. The labor force includes anyone that's working and looking for a job. Now, when you look at economic fluctuations in our economy, you'll notice that we go through business cycles. Business cycles are the short ups and downs that our economy experiences. And you notice we have a lot of those little ups and downs. When the economy is growing really fast, you'll notice that the unemployment rate will decrease because we need workers. We need workers to be able to supply amount of jobs that we need to produce the amount of products. But now if the economy slows down, you're going to see all these workers that we had to hire, we're going to have to let them go because there's not enough demand for them. And the two types of cycles that we're looking at, you have an expansionary cycle and a contractionary cycle. Expansionary cycle is dealing with an economic boom, when we're having a huge peak in our economy. Contraction is a little bit different. That's looking at when the economy is slowing down. And when the economy is slowing down, all of us are affected. It's basically, if you think about it, it's cyclical in nature. And a lot of us are affected by that. Now, a couple more terms we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at inflation, hyperinflation, and deflation. Inflation is the general increase in the price level. If you go to the store, we're all affected by inflation somehow. If you look at the price of food, skyrockets. The problem is our income is not going up as much as the price of food is. That's very challenging. How are we going to be able to afford all of this? That's where we get into the point of purchasing power. Now, deflation is the general decrease in the price level. Now, that's a little bit different. Deflation is when prices decrease, and that's a challenge for our economy to deal with as well, because you don't like prices to actually decrease. Because if prices start to decrease, that means consumers might not be buying anything. And when consumers aren't buying anything, that could create a lot of issues in our economy. So those are some of the topics you're going to be discussing this week. Inflation, unemployment. Make sure to take that midterm exam by the due date because no extension can be provided. I look forward to your effort.